Welcome to the Anime Reviewers. I'm Matt.
I'm Zach.
Today we're talking about suppose a kid from the last dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town. This show is done by Studio Leiden Films. It's directed by Migme. The writer is Dako Akio. The writer is Dako Akao.
The episode title for this is the same as the show, Mouthful, the anime. The title's a mouthful, I'm sorry, it is. It is a fun series, but it's definitely... but the show itself is actually really fun and kind of interesting, and
it was very entertaining.
It was super entertaining. And it follows this main character, his name is Lloyd, and he leaves his sort of rural village that he lives at because he wants to go exploring and being an adventurer. And he ends up going across the continent to forget the name of the village or the name of the city. But he goes there because they have like an adventure, it's like an entrance exam type thing that he intends to sign up for and participate in. And really the show this episode specifically sort of revolves around him like sort of getting introduced to the city itself and just sort of how people like certain characters react to him. So it's not like it's less about like his growth and like his development, more as like people's reaction to the things he does. Because he comes from a small village called Kunlun, which we find out is near the world that they live in has dungeons, like that is a set thing. But Kunlun is a village like just outside of the last dungeon in the world. And he comes from there, and he goes to this major city, and he's going to be staying with this at least presumably she's a well-known witch in the city because she's known as the witch of the East Side. Her name is Marie. And he's introducing himself to her, and she's like, why do you think, like, where'd you come from? Why do you think you're staying with me? And he's like, oh, the village chief told me to come here. And he's like, oh, I forgot I have this. And he hands her, like, this little crystal orb ball thing. The village chief, like, it creates a projection of her. And immediately the Witch of the East End, because, like, her whole, like, intro is being confident, like, do you have a wish that you're willing to sacrifice for? This is what witches have always done. The second the image of the village chieftain pops up, she's immediately on her knees, bowing her head, freaking out. Because it turns out the village chieftain, Alka, is actually Marie's teacher. We find out through conversation and some of the things that are said that Alka has a weird sense of how to use magic, in the sense that she uses like ancient ruins that are described to like potentially be world ending for really mundane purposes. And it's hysterical because like she taught one of them, which is this really powerful ancient rune that can remove any curse. She taught that to Lloyd, and Lloyd puts it on a rag and then like starts cleaning dust off stuff. And that's how he uses it. But to him, it's just, oh, it's a cleaning spell. That's it.
Yeah,
he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what it means. And Marie's freaking out the whole time. And he explains that, oh, he can't.
Well, the reason she inquires about it is because he wipes off her face with it.
Oh,
and it removes the curse that she got put on her that made like blemishes.
Yeah, that's what it was. And she finds out, like, she asks where he's from, and he's like, oh, I'm from basically the other side of the country. And he's like, it took me 6 days to get here. And she's like, oh, you must have gotten, like, by train. If you got really good transfers, that's doable. He's like, no, I ran here. I have terrible stamina. And she immediately is like, what? What do you mean? How is that terrible stamina?
Then it says my grandfather. He says my grandfather could do it in 2 days. And then it shows an old, really old man who's got like a cane and a business suit.
It's so funny.
And then she asks him, did you see any monsters along the way? No, I just ran into animals. Giant cicadas and...
Yeah.
I forget what else he mentions. And she's like, those are the monsters. No, monsters say I want to take over the world. Those are demon lords. It's so good.
It's so funny. This is definitely a show that like is going to have the overpowered main protagonist.
Well, it's like it genuinely feels like One Punch Man has inspired people to make that same kind of story, but actually have like better stories and stuff. Even though I actually do enjoy it.
I love One Punch Man. But I do like, yeah, I think you're right. Is the fact that like, yes, it's an overpowered main protagonist, and in the past, had I known about like, even just a few years ago, like that would have been like, I don't really care about it. Because usually the overpowered main protagonist story isn't funny, it's not good, there's no character growth, there's no development. Like, a lot of times it's just the overpowered main protagonist always wins.
Yeah.
And this one, I'm sure a lot of fights he ends up in, he'll end up winning. But it really seems like what this show is going for is sort of him learning about the outside world, and also him learning to interact with people and how, like, and people's reactions to his existence.
But it seems like it's going to be about his development as a person, and the action just kind of. It's there for the fun part. Because, like, there's a scene where insects are attacking the town. And he goes, I didn't think there'd be so many bugs here. And it's like, he just thinks it's like a random infestation.
And not only does he like that, but, like, he chucks it out of the city.
Yeah.
It's not like he beats it and walks away. Like, he crushes it, or crushes its head, picks it up, and throws it out the city. In the process, we actually get introduced to a character who's probably going to end up playing something prevalent. She is referred to as the Cursed Belt Princess. Very shortly, we find out her name is Celine. But she got attacked by a bug and has like dirt all over her face and stuff. And so he uses his rag that removes any curse to wipe her face and stuff. And we get a scene with her where she's like. She bumped into someone who was like a noble from that town, or at least from that region, that was demeaning her for like making nobles look bad, and
because she's so ugly.
Yeah, she was told so. Like she apparently was cursed to have this belt thing around her head, and she's like, the stories are only true strength can remove it, which is, I'm not gonna lie, probably something someone made up, just to get the family off their back. Like, it really comes across like. Because they said they went to a priest or something. It really sounds like the priest just said something to make the family happy. But because he wiped her face and her head with the let me remove any curse in the world rag.
Yeah.
The belt comes off. Go figure. And she remember, like, it flashes back to their meeting, and she immediately is like, oh, he's my one true love, or something like, he's my destiny. That's what it is. Like, he's my destiny. Because her interaction with him is what led her to be able to take the belt off. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's silly stuff, but it's kind of like those classic stories.
Oh yeah,
of just like the character, the heroic character, does some silly thing and cures her.
Yeah.
And then she falls in love with it. But again, that doesn't feel like it's gonna be like a main thing. And he didn't seem at all in fact like he's not there to pick up girls.
No, he's not.
Dungeon.
Yeah, no, he's there because he wants to experience the outside world. And one of the other characters, which based on like how they introduce her, I'm led to believe she'll also be sort of maybe not a main character, but definitely a prominent side character.
Oh, she's gonna be the top of the show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Speaking of, if you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, she's more than likely gonna be top.
Oh, probably. She's referred to as the one-armed mercenary. Her actual name is Rito. And she's at this event, and it like you see some of the people that are the like higher ups in the school, because they went out scouting people. She was one that was scouted, and they're talking. She's actually got a rap sheet. Like, she is known for being a mercenary, for being a bandit, for doing illegal things. And they're sort of talking about it, and it's actually really funny because the guy that scouted her is like, she's a mercenary at heart. Give her the right contract, and she's fine. And they're like, well, what contract did you give her? He's like, well, if she joins us, her rap sheet goes away. And we're seeing her, and we sort of get an introduction to how she thinks, because she's scouting out people and looking, and like she's sitting off to the side. Like, we're seeing a lot of interaction with like various people, but she's sitting off to the side, sort of looking over at people. Oh, he's a noble. These two are together. There must be money there. Like, she's sort of scouting everything out. And it turns out while she's doing that, Lloyd happens to be sitting next to her, and she like all of a sudden is like, okay, so I get this. This is probably going to be pretty easy. What is this thing next to me? What is this monster? And she's panicking because she's like, if this any slight wrong move, he can kill me without a thought. So she is on some level aware of what he like, not necessarily where he comes from or like what
She knows he's really powerful.
she can tell he's powerful. And it's hysterical because like when she looks at him, like he's got this like he's like holding his little bag and just like and smiling. And to her, like there's this like
that's like my favorite part about Lloyd is he can sit like throughout the episode you just consistently see that he's just a genuinely nice guy who is totally ignorant of the fact that he is a powerhouse.
yeah. But like when she looks at him, she visualizes like a tiger over him or something like
I
that.
think it's a lion.
A lion? I forget what it was, but it's some sort of like it's sort of King of Beasts style.
Yeah, and he's just sitting on his shoulder, staring at her, maliciously.
But he's got a smile on. I forget, like either she gets up or he gets up to say something.
He gets up and she panics and thinks he did something wrong because she just responds to him and thinks she's offended him.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm Lloyd." And he's introduced, you know. And that's actually where we find out who the Belt Princess' actual name, Celine, because she's at the events as well. But now she doesn't have the belt on her head, and she's like in love with him. And she's like, "Who's this woman?" And because immediately she falls like head over heels.
Oh, yeah, and she's like super jealous in that cliched anime way.
Oh, super cliche. Lloyd's like, "Oh, I just met her," and she's like, "Oh, okay, she's nice." Like she immediately stops caring about who she is. The one other thing that I really enjoy is the fact that like, so this all like outside of like you find out that outside of people being scouted, there's also you can just walk up and try out for this academy, and it turns out that like Rito is talking to the commander that scouted her. She's like, "Oh, you've seen some." I think she's like, "This will be an interesting competition, but what is that?" And they're referring to Lloyd, and he's like, "I have no idea. No one scouted him. He just walked in." So even he knows that Lloyd is insanely powerful. So it tells me that some people at some level are aware of power scaling and are aware that he's crazy strong. And I love like one of the comments that he makes earlier, and it's sort of prevalent through the whole show, is the fact that he calls himself the weakest in his village. Like he says he's the weakest in his village. He has the least stamina, least strength. Like, but to all of these relatively speaking normal folk or even like athletic folk, he is beyond them. It's just so funny because he doesn't understand it. To him he's weak because he grew up with people that are far stronger than he is. And I think it's going to be a really interesting. I hope they do it well because it seems like it seems like a hysterical show. It seems so funny.
Yeah.
And I hope they keep the comedy. I kind of hope the whole Celine being in love with him thing, like, I'm fine with it, but I hope they take it down like a notch from where they had it in this episode.
I hope it's more like oh man, I can't remember. I hope it's not as bad as like Brock and Pokemon, but it's like because there's a show where the main character. Oh, like in Overlord when he rescues the old woman with witch lady girl who has the mask on.
Yeah,
Who's in love with falls in love with Mamunga or Maman, and then he just throws her over his shoulder or just carries her around and like completely it's basically ignoring her in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like if it's that and it's basically a joke. Like she's just in love with him. And
that would be fine. Like I said, like
or they can fall in love as long as it's a good love story.
As long as it's good, yeah, that's fine. But I don't foresee this going like.
I don't need internal monologue of how amazing she thinks he is, though.
Yeah,
that's what I get to when you're saying Tony
yeah.
Khan. That's probably what you mean.
It made sense in her scene when she was alone and.
Well, thinking about how this guy basically freed her from her.
So it made sense there. I just hope it doesn't, like, delve too much into her mindset about it. Now that's what I'm concerned about, is that they're going to dial it up. Like, if it stays where it is, that's fine. If they dial it back a notch, it'd be great. But I don't want them going really too far with that. But it like I said, the show is hysterical, and this juxtaposition of I'm the weakest, but in the real, like in the outside world, I'm insanely like really excited to see how that's gonna go.
Yeah.
Because outside of the fact that he's naive to everything, especially the outside world, like, he grew up with the mindset that he's the weakest. So I'd be interested in seeing, like, what type of growth that has. When he sort of learns and figures out that he's actually not, like, yes, he's the weakest from where he comes from, but that doesn't mean he's weak. I hope they get to that point where he realizes he's not weak and sort of can gain that confidence.
I want to make like references to older MMO games that had such radical transitions of like that's what basically is. It's like a level 50 character went to a starter zone.
Yeah,
because he just didn't know how to gear himself.
Yeah.
like your top level, you should be doing raids and dungeons, or like high level raids and dungeons, but instead you go back to the starter area because you don't have any idea of the meta that you need to be mastering in order to play top level and high end stuff.
Yeah. You also one of the things to mention real quick that they do mention towards the end of the episode is like Kunlun, the village he comes from, actually had like we find out because Marie is sort of thinking about it, and we find out it's a village that it's essentially like what amounts to like a forgotten village. Because it's a village that ancient heroes went to for rest near the last dungeon. So it sounds like at some point in time, people stopped being able to make it to the last dungeon. So Kunlun, instead of being this place people sought out and went to, became this sort of mythological city or town. But it sort of became this myth of a place versus you could just go there.
And Atlantis was totally.
But that's what I mean. Is it sort of like became this myth, and no one's really sure if it's real or where it is or anything like that. And Marie mentions the fact that like I think that's really why he is so powerful is the fact that it's these historically top of the line heroes that could make it to and possibly even through the last dungeon went there for rest. So in regards to that, like his family history is. Like, you go back far enough, there's literally legends of the world.
Probably. That's like what they imply.
That's what they imply, at least.
Well, and they talk about how it's like siblings, like they make mention of siblings being really powerful.
Yeah. And it's so funny. And
this is a show I'm actually going to follow on a weekly basis, and I'd actually recommend this to people who are looking for like a good anime.
If you're looking for a funny, like enjoyable weekly show to watch, like I think this is a good one for it.
Yeah,
I think this is a really good one for that.
Yeah, I look forward to it. That's pretty much everything I have to say about it.
Yeah, that's it for me too. Have a good one.
Bye bye. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And hit that bell icon for notifications. Also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Links in the description down below.